What's going on, guys? Alex here, and today I wanted to talk about the Sigma 16mm F1.4 lens for my Sony camera. I have the Sony A6400, but it works for all Sony APS-C cameras, and you can also get it for Canon and I think other manufacturers, but I obviously have the Sony version. So I'm going to be talking about this from my perspective, so I'm not really an expert in cameras or lenses or photography or anything like that. I'm just using it for its basic features and using it for these type of videos that I make on YouTube. Alright, so just quickly looking at the unboxing, it's quite a basic one. You get the lens itself. It comes with a lens hood, so that's for if you're in the sun and you want to avoid kind of lens flare and stuff like that, or so I've read. I don't really use it because I'm always indoors, but it's handy to have. And then also you get some paperwork, so quite a boring unboxing experience, but it is just a camera lens after all, so that's to be expected. Okay, so taking a look at the lens, it is pretty basic. There's no buttons on it or no option to zoom in. You just have this focus ring. If you have your camera in manual focus, this focus ring allows you to focus on your image. As I said, there's no zoom because this is a prime lens, and what that means is it's a fixed focal length of 16mm, so you can't zoom in and out. If you want to get closer to a subject, you have to actually move the camera physically closer and further away. So if you are looking for something with zoom, this obviously isn't the lens for you. So the Sigma 16mm that I have is for the Sony APS-C line, and I have the Sony A6400, and basically they are all cropped frame sensors. So what that means is the sensor is actually cropped 1.5 times. So you basically see less of the image that you would on a full frame lens. So for the 16mm, you multiply that by 1.5, which gives you 24mm. So when you put the 16mm on the A6400, it is like having a 24mm lens on a full frame camera. So it's not actually as wide as 16mm, but it's still perfectly wide if you want to go around vlogging or anything like that. The 16mm is perfect. So just one thing to note, I originally got the kit lens with my Sony A6400. That is the 16 to 50mm f3.5 kit lens, and that lens is like a fraction of the size of the Sigma lens. So if you are looking for something more compact, I would recommend the kit lens. The Sigma is the biggest out of the 3 Sigma lenses that they offer for APS-C cameras. It is quite big and it's a lot heavier, so if that's something that you'd be concerned about, then just make a note of that. So the thread size on the Sigma is 67mm, so if you're looking to buy ND filters or anything like that, you go for the 67mm size. And I read online that you always buy the filters for your biggest lens, so in my case that's this Sigma 67mm, because if you want to then use it on smaller lenses, you can buy adapters, but if you buy for the smallest lens, you can't use it on the bigger one because it doesn't cover the whole lens. So that's just something to note there as well. Okay, so looking at this lens, there are some pros and cons to it being a prime lens. Pros are you get a really good clear image and it's great in low light, but obviously the cons are it's not very versatile. It's a fixed focal length, so if you do need zooming in, you don't have that option. But for me, I have it set up on a tripod all the time in my room, and I kind of stay still in front of it, just a talking head, so having the fixed focal length is fine for me. Alright, so then the main reason why I bought this lens is because of its low f-stop number, so it's f1.4. And what that means is it has a low aperture, or it can also be called a fast lens. Fast lens equals low f-stop number. And there's 2 benefits to this. So the first benefit is it works really well in low light, and I just feel like living in Ireland, it gets dark really early for most of the year, for like half the year, so having good low light performance is crucial for me. And yeah, I'm working in my bedroom here, I have blacked out blinds and just one light, so having that low light allows me to get the aperture lower and have a lower ISO, so the image quality is always better. So yeah, low light performance is really good on this lens. Then another reason why you would go for a low f-stop number is to get this kind of background blur. It's called a shallow depth of field. So I'm in focus, I'm kind of close to the lens, so I'm in focus, and then behind me is all kind of blurred. And that's kind of a desirable way to record videos apparently, so I've seen on YouTube on other videos. The first lens that I got is the kit lens, the 16 to 50mm by Sony. and that only goes down to f3.5. Now you can still get a bit of a blur behind it, but it's just not as good and it's not as clean an image. So that's one of the reasons why I got it. So one of the main cons of this lens that I found is the lack of stabilization. Now it's called optical steady shot, and this lens doesn't have it. So if you're out and about walking around, you will have a very shaky image unless you're using something like a gimbal that can steady the shot for you. If you're just using a handheld tripod and walking around, yeah, it's going to be a very shaky image, and I'll give you an example of that right now. Okay, so this is an example of the Sigma 16mm lens stabilization, or lack of stabilization. So I just have it on a handheld tripod, and as you can see, it's quite a shaky image. It's not very good for vlogging. So yeah, something to note. So then if you look at a lens that has optical steady shot, like the kit lens, the Sony one, it does have a bit of stabilization in the lens, so it would be a lot smoother if you are out vlogging. And here's an example of that lens. Okay, so now this is an example of me using the Sony kit lens, 16 to 50mm, that has optical steady shot. So you might notice it's a little bit smoother. It's obviously not perfect because it is handheld at the end of the day, but it might be a little bit smoother than the Sigma lens that I just showed you. So yeah, that's it pretty much on stabilization. If you are someone that needs to be out and about on the go and you don't have a gimbal, the 16mm Sigma lens probably isn't for you. You'd want to look at something with more of a stabilization in it. If you're like me, where the camera's sat in a tripod the whole time, stabilization doesn't really matter because it's in a fixed position, so it works for me. But yeah, just thought I'd point that out. And then the last point I want to talk about is autofocus. Now the autofocus on the Sigma is amazing. You would think that because it's a third-party lens, i.e. it's not made by Sony, that it might lose out on a bit of autofocus, but it's actually really good. It's really snappy, and it's great for me to know that every subject that I want to be in focus is in focus, and you can literally just tap the screen and point at different parts of the screen and it'll focus on it really quickly. And yeah, it's great for a beginner like me to know that the shot is always going to be in focus. So yeah, there you go. Really quick video on my kind of thoughts on this Sigma 16mm f1.4 lens for the Sony cameras. I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, thanks a mil for watching. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.